Good morning, grade 12s. It's Friday morning, and we want to get started again today. I want to thank you for joining into our class chat yesterday. As always, a highlight of my days here as I spend time in an empty classroom. It's always a highlight to see your faces and to connect with you in that way. And again, we will continue to do those every couple of weeks as we continue to move on towards the end of this school year. We are really essentially 6 or 7 weeks away from the end. We're probably halfway through our distance learning model of being out of school, maybe even shorter, depending on how things go in the next little while. We'll see. What we want to talk about today we're moving towards the treatment side of the uses of radiation. Up until now, we have talked about what radiation is. We've talked about the use of it in diagnostics, and now we want to move into treatment. So now you've gone through the diagnostics, you've been diagnosed with a disease like cancer or something else, and now how is radiation used in treatment? And so you are going to be reading chapter 4 in your student booklet. That will be your assignment. And within chapter 4, there are a few things that you should take particular note of. One is there are a few different kinds of radiation treatments. There's 4 really, and 3 of the 4 are considered what are called radioisotope therapy. And then inside a radioisotope, so that's again using an isotope, which is a radioactive particle that releases radiation, and then you can use that to kill cells, basically what it is. And within radioisotope therapy, there are internal methods and there are external methods. There are 2 internal methods that you should take note of. One is called brachytherapy, and it is basically a procedure where you implant a radioactive seed into a tumor and around a tumor, and that seed releases radiation and it kills cells inside of you. A second type of internal treatment is called systemic radiation. Systemic radiation is the fancy name for chemotherapy. It's where the patient is either given a radioactive drink, a pill, or some kind of injection, and the radiation goes into their body that way, and again kills the cancer cells that way. And then the third type, you'll see it in your booklet. It's got a fancy name. They call it teletherapy. Again, teletherapy is the clinical name or the scientific name for radiation therapy, and you use what's called a LINAC machine, which is short for linear accelerator. And so if you're watching the videos on the Connect page, there's one titled LINAC, and that is about a linear accelerator. And so if you go for radiation treatments, that's the machine that will be used on you. Again, when I went through my cancer treatments way back in the early 2000s, I had a month's worth of radiation treatments and was subjected to the LINAC machine, a way of using teletherapy. And so I want you to take note of what that is as well. So those are the what are called radioisotope therapies. There's the 2 internal methods of what's called brachytherapy, which is an implanting of a radioactive seed. There's chemotherapy, otherwise known as systemic radiation, where the radiation is drunk as a liquid, as a pill, or as an injection, an IV. It's into you. The last kind of treatment is called the Gamma knife. And again, a Gamma knife is very similar to a LINAC machine. It uses a LINAC machine creates radiation by accelerating electrons and smashing those electrons into something that then causes them to release radioactive particles. The Gamma knife uses a radioactive material called cobalt-60, and it contains the cobalt-60 in an area, and then it just opens up pinholes to allow the radiation to come out of these pinholes. And the Gamma knife is a very precise machine, primarily used in the treatment of brain tumors, where you want as fine of a point as you can in terms of the radiation. With all radiation treatments, as we've talked about, is that there's an effect on humans. Radiation treatments and radiation in your system doesn't distinguish between cancer cells and healthy cells. It kills them all, right? So with radiation, they do the radiation, the LINAC machine, you'll see as you read that it rotates and it creates a radiation beam in various spots, and then where those overlap, is where your tumor would be, and that's where they want to then focus the overlapping parts, right? So that each individual beam isn't causing a lot of damage, but where they overlap, that's killing the most cells, and that should be where your tumor is. But doesn't mean that the cells in between there are also not getting damaged in some way. But the Gamma Knife does the same kind of thing, but it's much more precise in doing it, and so it's used primarily in brain tumors, because there you want to be precise. You do not want to be killing off brain cells. And so read about that. Interesting fact about the Gamma Knife, and this is our Did You Know section today, a very short one. But interesting fact about the Gamma Knife is that it's a fairly new technology. 2003 was when it was started to be used in Canada, and Winnipeg housed the first Gamma Knife machine in Canada. And so a little local connection to Winnipeg. University of Manitoba set it up and used it within the Health Sciences Centre, and it was Canada's first Gamma Knife. So there you go. All right, read chapter 4 of your book, and ask any questions that you might have, send me an email, etc. Remember that we're coming close to the end of our unit, and we'll get to that by mid next week. We should be at the end. All right, as we go from here today, I do want to leave you again with a bit of an encouragement, a verse. The devotional reading that I've been doing over the last while takes me to a New Testament passage, an Old Testament passage, and then our Psalms. And over the last number of days, the Old Testament passages have been out of Numbers. Numbers is not the most interesting book to read all the time, but just the other day I was reading through Numbers 6, and Numbers 6, the end of Numbers 6 contains a very familiar blessing that I thought I would read you, and hopefully it will bless you as you head into the weekend now. So Numbers 6, verses 24 to 26 say, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." So hope you have some peace this weekend, and we will see you again next week.